There's a question about how we honor the Gospel's revelation of Jesus in his first century Jewish contexts, while also choosing to use metaphysical concepts to explain what we think in our theology. How does all of that fit together? And does using philosophical concepts in some way undermine our fidelity to the Gospel's presentation of Jesus? When we do think of employing philosophical concepts or metaphysical concepts in our theology, it's important to make the point that we're not saying those concepts get to drive the discussion. Our theology has to be subjected to God's scriptural revelation. Scripture supplies the content, and it is the rule that judges our doctrinal claims in whatever topic we are working at that point. But in order to explain what Scripture reveals to us, we can't just repeat verbatim verses of the Bible. Anyone can appeal to verses of the Bible and restate them, and they can do so in a way that distorts the meaning of them. So we have to be able to say, I must sometimes use extra biblical concepts in order to explain what's there in the Bible. And extra biblical does not automatically mean anti-biblical. It just means I can't just repeat what the verse says. Let me explain it to somebody in some other words. That is, by the way, what preachers have to do every single Sunday. They do go beyond the bare reading of Scripture and actually explain things using additional words. That's normal. I think that for us in Christology or the doctrine of God, it's tempting to think that some of the philosophical or extra-biblical concepts that are introduced are so technical or scary or something like that, that they must end up turning our attention away from what Scripture actually teaches. And I would want to make the point that in using metaphysical concepts that are refined by people like Aristotle or John of Damascus or Thomas Aquinas, what we're actually doing is just getting a refined grasp of things that ordinary people already know. So, for example, human beings know that we have something together in common, and yet there are also individuals that exist within our kind, within the human race. You could explain that by talking about essence and hypostasis, or person. The average person might not think about those terms explicitly when they're recognizing human beings all share something in common, and yet there are individuals within our kind. And yet, people like Aristotle, John of Damascus, Aquinas, grab hold of certain concepts and seek to define them in very careful ways to bring out such things that human beings already know. And then we can apply them in our description of the person of Christ or the Trinity, recognizing that there are some real distinctions there that we have to observe. God is distinct from us, so those concepts can't apply just in any way to God. They will apply by analogy or in an analogical way or some similar way to God. So I would want to say, in using philosophical concepts, we don't have to be doing something other than just trying to explain what's there in the Bible. And I think the church fathers who introduced concepts that appear in Greek philosophy into our theological tradition, they weren't doing something that must take us away from the Bible. I think they're actually just using extra biblical words that help us go more deeply into the logic of the Bible itself. Some theologians have used a distinction between a magisterial use of reason or concepts from philosophy and a ministerial use of those. If you're talking about a magisterial use, you're talking about philosophy then becoming a master or the main teacher of theology, which it is not. Our use of philosophy, our use of concepts that appear in philosophy, is supposed to be ministerial in the sense of serving the gospel, serving the church to open up the meaning of Scripture for us.